Hey Thumbers, welcome back to another episode of Hyper Heroes here on Hyper RPG. Of course, another week of talking. I just realized I don't have my microphone in front of me.
All right, we'll do it again.
Hey Thumbers, welcome back to another episode of Hyper Heroes here on Hyper RPG. I got my beer, I got my microphone, we good to go. It's been an exciting night. These gents got a chance to see Black Panther.
Finally.
Wait, did you not go again tonight?
Not again, I didn't go again.
Okay.
I didn't want to be the only lone soul in the theater.
You've seen it once, you've seen it once, I've seen it
One
once.
view,
We've all
one
seen it
view,
once.
each one view.
Excellent.
Yeah, you got a chance to see it in 3D.
Oh, guys, the 3D is good.
Yeah?
The 3D, it's just the one thing at the ArcLight that I don't like. Nobody, this is the thing. We're already going to people are already turning off because nobody gives a shit about 3D anymore. I'm super bummed out about it. It's a real bummer. Everything's 4K now. I blame marketing. Good job, Hollywood. You fucked it up.
So you're the only guy in the theater.
No, it was packed.
Yeah?
It was really packed.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
So it
ArcLight
was
Hollywood
packed.
was playing Black Panther every 15 minutes up until like 2 in the morning.
When you go to the ArcLight and you see a 3D movie, they give you the heavier glasses
Yeah.
that I don't
Yeah.
like on my
Like
nose.
the thicker framed.
The thicker,
Yeah.
those glasses. I'm like, guys, this is why people don't like 3D. Like,
Yeah.
just get the little.
If they just gave
flimsy
out the little
plastic
clippy ones for people who wore glasses,
something,
nobody
man.
would complain.
But the 3D was
On point?
excellent.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, great for the action shots, great for the establishing shots of
Yeah.
Wakanda. Like, it was really, really good, really good.
All
Yeah,
right, all right.
I didn't get to see it in 3D. The screening at Disney was a 2D screening.
Yeah.
The end credits are dope in 3D. End credits.
The end credits are
pretty
really
good.
good.
The end credits for Marvel movies are always really cool and stylistic and everything, but like the ones in Panther are awesome.
Yeah.
Because it mirrored the opening, like the way that they kind of told this history
Like
of
the
Wakanda.
universe kind
Yeah,
of.
with the sand
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah.
feeling. So like they mirrored that at the end, and it looks great in 3D.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Spoilers,
highly
we're going to
recommend.
talk about Black Panther.
Yeah.
So we might as well just jump into it because we're already bringing it up. First thing I need to say about this, though, is Naeem. If you don't know Naeem, he did the non-spoiler review of Black Panther with me.
Yeah.
He did this incredible piece of artwork for Black
Gorgeous.
Panther.
Oh, that's right.
The stipple piece of artwork that has T'Challa, Okoye, Nakia,
And
but
the Panther himself.
the Panther himself.
And then T'Challa in the
yes,
costume.
75 hours it took him to make
Yeah.
this drawing. So you absolutely need to go to Naeem's Twitter account, go to his Instagram account, like the photo, share it,
show him
retweet
some
it,
love.
show him some love
Yeah.
because he's done this before. He's had his work featured at TwitchCon, I think
Yeah.
also at
Yeah.
Comic-Con. He's an incredible artist. Shout out to him for making this beautiful piece of artwork.
Yeah.
We'll link his social media down in the description below so you can find it. Make sure you guys share it. Tag as many people from the Black Panther movie as you can because we definitely want to get eyes on his work because
Let's
it's
get
absolutely
Chadwick
amazing.
to look at this and retweet it.
Exactly.
Speaking of showing some love, we have to dedicate this little Black Panther review and
that's
the rest of our
right.
episode
Yeah.
to
our
our
boy.
friend, Mr. Jay Washington. He is recovering right now. He had a
Emergency surgery.
Emergency surgery,
emergency
The flu
surgery.
got him, and then another infection got him, and now he's got a hole in his throat.
And
Yeah.
he is recovering, and we are wishing him a speedy recovery. And we were just talking about you, Jay. Of course, you know that here at Hyper RPG, you have got a revolving door welcome.
No.
No?
He has a plate at this table.
He does
That's
have a
right.
He
plate. on his
always
table.
has a plate at
Yeah.
this table.
So
Always.
just because
Always.
Jay's not here, you know, he's been there with so many of our Black Panther trailer
Yeah.
reviews
Yeah.
and trailer reactions, and he always comes and brings us amazing insights. So, like, we will get his thoughts on
it
Panther.
feels weird to
at
wrap
some
this
point.
up without Jay
Yeah,
here,
for
but
sure.
for the time being,
But
we'll wrap it up.
he's here in
without
spirit.
Jay. Yeah.
He's
for sure,
with us
for sure.
He's here on the astral
his
plane.
plate is here at the table, so it's
Yes.
okay.
So,
It's okay.
but yeah, as soon as whenever he just wants to show up, like,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we'll get his
We'll
thoughts.
do it. We'll
Cannot
do it.
wait to talk to him
100%.
about Black Panther.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's get into this movie. This is going to be a spoiler review of Black Panther, and you know, I spent 35 minutes talking about it with Naeem, and
Yeah, I saw that.
It was hard. It was hard for Naeem to really talk about this movie. I would actually like to have him back too, so he can talk about the movie. He had so
In a
many
s-
strong
in a
feelings
spoiler
about
way.
it. Yeah, in a spoiler way. It was really
yeah.
difficult for him
Yeah.
to sort of wrap up what he wanted to say about the movie because it was a non-spoiler review. But what I will say, going into this movie, I had a very limited history of who Black Panther was, what Wakanda was, and sort of its place in the Marvel universe in terms of the comics, because there wasn't a big comic book reader or a Marvel comic book reader. And we got a little introduction of this character in Captain America Civil War. To me, it was a great introduction because it was very strong, and it really sort of gave a solid foundation to who T'Challa was and the importance of Wakanda and the Black Panther legacy. So going into this movie, I mean, I think rightfully was expecting sort of an exploration, a further exploration of what that is, what the family dynamic was between him and his mother, his sister, the Dora Milaje, Nakia. And this movie does an incredible job of taking those little seeds that were sort of introduced in Civil War, if to a very limited extent, and by limited I mean really only showing us his small relationship he has with his father and just mentioning other things. Ryan Coogler does an incredible job, completely just exploring everything in such a beautiful way, where I feel like, and some people complained about that they didn't feel like there was enough Chadwick Boseman in this movie being Black Panther. I thought Civil War did such a beautiful job of sort of introducing him. This movie adds on to that and builds off of what was done in Civil War, but it also allows the other 5-6 characters in this movie to really shine.
That, honestly, the supporting characters made it for me.
Yeah.
Like Chadwick Boseman, he was good.
Solid.
But everybody else was on their A game. On their A game. There was no slipping up by anybody else whatsoever.
No.
And the tricky thing,
I really liked Andy Serkis too. Like I didn't expect
Ulysses Claw.
I didn't expect to like him as much as I did.
Perfect casting for that character and for that role. And he was so fun to watch and such a great villain. And like I wanted him to be even like more racist, and I was worried that he was going to be.
Yeah.
But anytime he said like savages, I'm like, you mother.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, they let you say this in a Disney movie,
you know? But like they could have pushed it further, but I'm kind of glad they didn't. But like but it was there. The hints of that were there, and
it definitely paints a picture of how notorious and horrible he is.
For sure. The tricky thing about T'Challa himself is that like a lot of characters that are the sort of main character heroic role, he's played very stoically. T'Challa as a character,
for sure.
He is that way in the comic books. He is this sort of untouchable, kind of above it all a little bit type of guy who has so much weight on his shoulders, such a burden. So to me, when you compare Chadwick Boseman doing T'Challa versus Michael B. Jordan doing Killmonger, Jordan's going to stand out as being this emotional, like, and just putting in an incredible performance. And I think part of that is just because Jordan is amazing.
Absolutely.
And Chadwick's great in the role, but I also feel like that role didn't necessarily give a whole bunch of opportunities to kind of to go out of that sort of role as much.
He had small moments here and there, like when he asked for the blanket because he was cold.
Moments where he's allowed to be funny.
Little things like that was
moments
good.
where he was sort of questioning the legacy of his father. And he's getting angry at it. And I'm like, I love that stuff. But again, this is the sort of tricky balance with an ensemble that is this good when with these many great, interesting characters.
Talent.
Is at any moment we have spent with him, we're going to, as soon as it's done, we're going over to Michael B. Jordan. Then we're going to go over to, Nakia. Then we're going to go over to Okoye. Then we're going to go over to Angela Bassett. Then we're going to go over to Forrest Whitaker. And like, it's jumping around so much that I think maybe the film could have benefited from being longer. In a sense of like, not just because everything that I saw was amazing, but like I want some scenes to breathe,
to delve
as I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm trying to feel out the editing, and I'm like, I feel like some of this was maybe edited for time and for pacing, as opposed to like, let me, for example, the Forrest Whitaker moment where he gets killed. I'm like, this is on paper, this is working. I get why this is in the story, but the
editing's kind of choppy
a little bit. Where I was just like, oh, I want more of a, Stanley Tucci was allowed to breathe, even in his death scene, albeit it was still pretty brief. Like him and Chris Evans in the first Avenger, where he, just kind of does this thing.
Build up,
exactly, and so maybe I wanted more moments to kind of breathe, just to sometimes when you watch some of these scenes in movies like this. Just a few moments kind of makes the difference between a scene like really working and a scene just like, okay, cool. Now we're on to the next.
The scenes that really worked were the moments where he was connecting with his father. Because those, they let them breathe. They had good timing. It was perfect.
And they were beautiful. He arrives at the, and just like,
oh, that scene was amazing. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was beautiful. But the moments where he fights M'Baku and he becomes king, it was a little bit choppy, so I didn't get the full gravity of like, oh, this is the moment where he fully accepts the title of Black Panther, and like this is what's going on, and it was a little bit odd.
I'm really curious about, like, when you go back to Avengers: Age of Ultron, we all know that Joss Whedon fought for the farm scene, because Whedon knew that like the importance of that scene, of that breather moment, and he wanted to be able to spend time with these characters, and so he fought for that, and other stuff got cut. He was like, whatever, this thing is very important, even though on paper it doesn't seem that.
It also influences the Marvel universe going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. But he was like, we need to go meet Clint's family. We need to go, we need to just breathe for a second. We need to have this moment between Bruce and Natasha for what we're trying to set up and blah, blah, blah. And I feel like I'm curious to see if Coogler fought for anything like that. I think if he did, it would have been the moment where Eric connects with his father.
Yeah.
Because that scene in the apartment, that was the kind of the pacing I was craving.
Exactly.
And I was like,
exactly.
Like, we took our time with that.
So right.
It felt so good. And what I love that I thought was really ballsy was like they could have stayed on John Jordan, on Michael, but instead when they cut to Sterling K. Brown and they cut back, they brought in a kid actor.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, this is thematically, this is choice. This is an excellent choice because it just showed what the character was going through. And that kid actor did a great job. But like, it's just like, boom, Eric's right back to being that. He never got over this death. He never got over,
still dwelling on it. Every decision he made as an adult can go back to that moment where he was when he was a kid. It's so love like that. If you break this movie down thematically and everything like that, it works really, really, really well. There was just some things in it that took me out. A little bit of the animation when Black Panther was in his suit
CG
was
stuff,
a little too over animated.
Yeah.
A little bit like some of the backbends he would do. I'm like, like even if you're Black Panther, that would break your spine.
Especially for me, the biggest thing was at the end of the movie where he fights Killmonger on like that subway track,
Right.
where they're transporting the vibranium. To me, that was definitely the most like CG animated, looking sequence of the movie.
You gotta give them credit because they're still finding ways in each of these superhero movies to like have the moment where the hero removes his mask, and they found that
always
there's always that, but they found I think it's a really good creative thing,
a smart way to
so that we can see their emotions stuff. But and not only that, but the idea that Wakanda is this fictional African country. There is a lot of green screen on display in the film,
and it's not always the best.
A lot of it's so good. A lot of it's not always the best, and if you are kind of used to seeing these kind of effects, it can take you out a little bit. Yeah. Because I was sitting there and I was like, man, this is such a great scene. I know they shot this on a set. Because this lighting is perfect. The background with these beautiful waterfalls, that's going to be all CG stuff. And again, it's like there's no way around it because there's no Wakanda for them to go shoot at.
And that's what I would have to remind myself. It sucks that I had to remind myself of that though, because there was this one shot in particular that I remember where it's Lupita Nyong'o and Chadwick Boseman sitting on the ledge.
At the end of the movie?
No, sort of in the middle.
Oh, when they're in like a valley?
Oh,
beautiful.
So they're
That's
looking
great.
over the valley. But I noticed this dark shadow around Chadwick Boseman's face, and I'm like, I know what that is personally. I know that's part of the green screen being keyed out, but other people necessarily won't notice it.
Sure.
But there's just a little bit of weirdness. It didn't happen on Lupita. Lupita had like the perfect. She was keyed out perfectly. Like everything was great.
And the tricky thing is, it's like, look, the stuff we're talking about. The CG, back-breaking stuff, we see it in Spider-Man: Homecoming. Are we more forgiving to it? Maybe. Sure.
I wasn't even in Spider-Man. Like there was some stuff that was
for sure. The green screen stuff, we see that shit in Asgard all the time. And you can compare Wakanda to another one of those types of realms.
Yeah, exactly.
You can even compare it to like when they recreated 1940s New York and stuff for like the first Avenger. Like anytime we see these big sort of CG environments, are we more forgiving for that stuff? Maybe. Why? Because in the same way that people are very specific about like CG Hulk. Why? Because Hulk is trying to be a real live breathing humanoid. And we know what humans look like, as opposed to like Ultron CG. We're like, whatever, it's a fucking robot,
a robot,
or Vision and stuff.
We have no frame of reference for that kind
the
of
thing about Wakanda is like it's supposed to be in Africa. So there, it is a place like Asgard or like a planet from Guardians of the Galaxy, but it is down to earth and it's in the continent of Africa. So there's constant sort of like realism versus this incredible, the fantasy of this place, the design of this place, which sidebar, costumes, holy shit.
Yeah.
Costume designing is going to get
nominated.
I forgot my blanket, dude. I told you guys I was going to wear my blanket for my review, and I forgot it.
The Ramonda blanket? Yeah, I was like, that's Augie's blanket.
I'm absolutely fired.
The costume designer, she's going to get nominated and I think win an Oscar next year for best costume design.
It's amazing.
It is gorgeous.
I think aside from the design itself, it's so rich and vibrant.
Dude, the colors.
Yeah.
The colors.
Amazing.
It's
incredible.
So good.
Incredible. So here's my sort of takeaway from Black Panther. I dug this movie,
Yeah.
and I want to go see it again. And here's the thing that I love about the movie that I've also loved about the comics since I've been a Marvel fan. I've been drawn to Spider-Man, I've been drawn to Daredevil, I've been drawn to Captain America, these different characters. Panther was always there, but he's not a character that I would necessarily dive into.
I never gravitated towards him either.
And it's understandable, even within the world of Marvel, even though he is this one of the pillars of the fictional world, the character himself has not had a consistent sort of run and the same sort of support as other characters. He's kind of been a fringe character.
Yeah.
But here's what I love about the movie and the comics. Since I've been a kid, I have known friends, we know these guys who have had a similar experience to me and other guys like me when reading comics, where we've loved this thing since we were 5, but we still understand, and at one point had to understand, most of these characters are white characters.
Yeah.
Most of these characters were created, and that's because of the time they were created in,
Yeah.
the 60s or earlier. So there's this kind of realization, is if you're a comic book reader who's not a white guy, of this like, wait, this isn't necessarily for me.
Right.
Now, comics historically have been for dudes, at least. So so males have this kind of, I think, feeling about comics, and it's changing today, and the demographics are changing, and it's awesome and it's fantastic. And now there's 50% or whatever of comic readers and graphic novels and manga are women, and that's awesome. But I'm saying traditionally, in the superhero world, it's been mostly marketed towards dudes.
Yeah.
But even if so there's that universal experience. But below that, after that, is this notion of like, I'm a not white guy reading, and my favorite characters are all white, and they've got blue eyes, and they've got black hair and blonde hair and all these different things. And the thing I've loved about Panther is I've always had friends, black guys, that have this like, oh, I know Black Panther, I love Black Panther, and it's this, and it's this feeling,
with Black Panther.
this in the same way that I will have a different experience to most people, I think, when I watch the movie Coco, because of my life experience, and that's fine. I'll have a different experience, and I love that movie for different reasons, because I'm bringing my life experience to it. That's what Black Panther, the comic, has been, and the movie. So my takeaway is like, I love the film. There's stuff that I think I'm picking up on, but I want to go see it again and again, because I know that there's stuff in here that is obviously going to be way more impactful for not just African Americans, not just black people in the United States, but black people around the world. That I will never sort of know and experience. And I love that about Black Panther. That is awesome. That's okay. I'm watching this movie and I'm like, I cannot wait to get the Latino superhero movie. If that's going to be a thing, if that's going to be a thing, and it'll be a different experience for me than for most people, and that's okay too. But the thing that I loved about the movie, and I feel like a lot of it is drawing from a famous run of Black Panther comics, Christopher Priest's run, and a lot of the Ta-Nehisi Coates' recent stuff.
There was I think the majority was Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Well, now I'm going to let you borrow some Christopher Priest stuff.
Okay.
Because but this is the great thing about Black Panther, is that all great Black Panther comics are not just superhero comics.
Right.
They talk about the black experience, and I think they talk about a uniquely American perspective of this fictional African country. Now, that may sound weird, but when you go back to the history of Panther, he was created by 2 white Jewish guys, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So the very conception of Black Panther, I think, is a very traditional American invention.
Right.
So it makes sense for there to be an American perspective about this fictional African country. And this movie brought it with Michael B. Jordan's character. Ryan Coogler looked at this thing and went, what does this mean to me? And when the movie opens in 1992 and we're in Oakland, I went, what is this? I'm like, what is this?
I was not expecting that whatsoever.
I loved it. And another great thing I love about the film is that notion of, I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter a few weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago, somebody tweeted, wait, if Wakanda is as powerful as Marvel Comics history says that it is in that fictional world, why did slavery still happen? This person was not saying, they were not implying that Wakandans themselves were enslaved, because this person that tweeted that knew that was not the case, right? The history of Marvel is that Wakanda's barriers, whether it's through a force field or even when it had a tribe just to protect it, it was never breached. No Wakandans were ever enslaved. But this person was still questioning the notion of like, why wouldn't Wakanda use its resources and power and vibranium and whatever to end slavery around the world, to help its African brothers and sisters that were taken from their homeland? And then our friend Iffy retweeted it and went, huh, holy shit, you make a good point. And that's what Iffy said. And I looked at that and I went, huh, holy shit, you make a good point. And I had to go do my research.
Yeah.
And I went to my little Marvel encyclopedias.
Uh-oh.
And I have a thing called the Marvel Atlas, and I tweeted out some pictures that I took of it that basically, it kind of briefly but tries to comprehensively cover the history of Wakanda.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you know about the movie Bright,
The one that just came out
on Netflix.
The Netflix.
People had a problem with it, and they're totally right. And there's a great YouTube video on it, I believe, by Lindsay Ellis. Is the YouTube essay that you can find online that I highly recommend. The movie Bright says that fairies and orcs and shit have existed in mankind's history the whole time, and yet we still get to a place today where there's like cholo orcs and gangbanger orcs in LA. And at one point a Mexican guy says, hey, I still get shit for the Alamo. And people watched that and went, wait, so did that mean there were orcs at the fucking Alamo? Why wouldn't human history be drastically different? If you're introducing, this is bad world building. So what Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did when they introduced the idea of the Black Panther, they kind of skirted around that, I think in a smart way, by saying, and this was the answer I found in my encyclopedia, was because Marvel didn't want to rewrite all of human history.
Yeah, exactly.
They were like, it sucks, but we're going to keep everything the same up to a certain point.
There's we're going to throw a curveball over here.
Little divergent thing. Oh, Steve Rogers was Captain America in World War II, and then people thought he died.
Yeah.
You know, up to, Iron Man gets, this kind of different like splits in our history. They said that Wakanda was an isolationist country until recent years. Recent years is 13 years ago, when the Fantastic Four first showed up, when Tony Stark gets back from building an Iron Man suit, when Captain America gets thawed from being frozen, Peter Parker gets bitten by a spider, Thor just shows up in modern, that's 13 years ago in recent years. So Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were able to say, like, history is the same, and that's not a great, that's a shitty answer.
It is.
That's a shit in it, but that's Marvel Comics, like that they did basically turn a blind eye, and that's a part of the movie. Is that other Black people around the world and Wakandans themselves that venture out into the world, they're going, there are problems. There are systemic problems in this world that Wakanda can do something about.
And why aren't we?
And I'm like, what a ballsy choice to make this the movie.
To be one of the villain's main hangups too. It's like, why are you guys not helping? You have the technology.
That's why he essentially wants to take over Wakanda.
Exactly.
With great power comes great
through line.
I love it. And that is it's sort of the core of T'Challa's character arc in this story, is that he's trying to balance, protecting Wakanda and doing what's right, but also, and people having differing opinions. And I just think it's great that Ryan Coogler like asks that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I love where the movie ends.
Yeah,
because it blows it up. It's just like, okay,
it's just like, never mind.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Space, son. We go to space.
My takeaway is, they're
going, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna go to space. Yeah. T'Challa's got satellites and shit. He has to.
Secret satellites.
It makes me want to read more Black Panther comics, and I'm going to, and I cannot wait. It makes me want to go get the soundtrack. I want to see the movie again, but again, like I know that there are things in this movie that are not necessarily that I won't even understand, like the significance
that
of.
You don't necessarily connect to in a way that somebody with a different experience might.
That's okay. So there are people way more qualified to speak on that stuff, on the thematic elements.
Agreed.
Everything else, I dug the movie. I dug
Adam?
Yeah, no, I thought it was I thought, to me, Black Panther, the thing that stood out for me the most about it was the fact that it didn't feel like a superhero movie. It was unique because it felt like a character study of a man who we meet as a child, or see sort of, not a child, but a little bit of a younger, more naive stage,
like,
and then we have to
boy.
see him sort of, accept his fate of being king, being the next Black Panther, seeing sort of somewhat of deceit that his father may have created, things in the past that are now coming back to sort of haunt him. He has to deal with them, and I think, to a certain extent, we've all sort of had to deal with things of the past that have to deal with our families, and how do we sort of take that on, and how do we deal with it, how do we accept it?
Very relatable.
And very much sort of stepping up to the mantle and being the man that you need to become. But I think what the movie also does so incredibly well is it empowers all the characters around him, particularly all the female characters.
Oh my God.
Which in the Marvel Cinematic Universe
100%.
hasn't really happened before.
Hashtag
severely lacking.
Black girl magic. This movie is such a feminist movie. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's the movie is basically saying, like, hey, all the world's problems are going to be solved by Black women. So let's just let's just hear what they've got to say.
T'Challa's in trouble. Guess who's going to save him? Black women magic.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think it was so great to see how unique they all were.
Yeah.
You had Shuri, who was very much the tech wizard, who really knew how to protect her brother, defend her or defend him when he was potentially going to be under attack. The fact that the suit can absorb so much kinetic energy, he can then deploy back on his enemies. The fact that Okoye is such a well-skilled, trained leader, general of the Dora Milaje, and that, you know, T'Challa can really count on her as his right-hand woman to really defend him and protect him and essentially almost be kind of stronger than him in some cases.
I mean, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
and then you have Nakia, who very much is like, she's basically like the 007 of Wakanda.
Yeah.
Where she's goes on all these different missions inside and outside of Wakanda.
Yeah, she's a spy,
She's willing to get involved with outside things that maybe are outside of sort of what would be considered Wakanda's sort of, you know, jurisdiction, but she's not afraid to do it because she knows she has to because it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely.
I love the fact that each of those characters had so many unique traits and unique personalities. And then his mother also having something like that because
Angela Bassett.
she's now inherited the responsibility of being sort of the main royalty to keep the family together, to ensure that, you know, he lives up to the expectations of what a Black Panther is, what a king should be, what he needs to in order to protect his nation. And she's obviously there for him too, to lend a shoulder to cry on, or moral support and a foundation. And I think it's so great for him to have a mother and a sister that do that. And I think in a lot of cases, there are people in this country and other country in all parts of the world that don't have a parent, don't have either parent, don't have a sibling that they can't really rely on. It's nice to see a superhero that really has that and embraces that, because most superheroes, other than maybe Superman, we don't really see the parents.
No, you don't really get a glimpse in their family life.
Not really.
Not
like we see, and you know, with Lois Lane, we have General Lane, but he is a very particular type of character. Clark Kent, at least to a certain point, has his mother. Batman doesn't have parents. As far as I know, we don't really get to see too much of Green Lantern's family. You know, Flash, we can see his dad, but he's in prison. You know, Peter Parker, we have Aunt May. So it's like very, very limited. It's nice to see that.
There's a lot of tragedy involved.
A lot of tragedy.
And there still is with T'Challa, because T'Chaka dies.
Exactly.
Well, of course.
To pass on that lineage, but like, you're absolutely right. In the beginning of the movie, you know, he says like, I'm not ready to be king, and his father says, you need to surround yourself with people you trust. And that's what
he's
what
not
the
ready
movie
to
is.
be king because his father's not there.
Yeah.
Though. That's the reason why.
Right.
Yeah,
And
so
that's-
you feel that love, you feel that family love.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's my takeaway with this movie. It's an amazing movie, but it has deeper messages that I think we need a little bit more time to process, because we're still like in the middle of it. But it's about father-son relationships and like father's abandonment, not necessarily because of their choice, but because of circumstances beyond their reach. You know, so father-sons, especially in the African American community, father-son relationships aren't necessarily the strongest. And I mean that goes with anybody though. Like anybody can have a tough relationship with their dad. But specifically in the African American community, you know, it's a thing. And so
you know, you just talking about that right now, Augustine, like you made me realize that Eric Killmonger's father, losing him to this violence, I'm like, that is a common real life story.
Right, exactly. It's just when that,
and they were literally in that neighborhood, in that apartment. I'm like, they're in the hood. That's you know,
that's
like
why
that's
I
that
love
parallel
that moment, because Ryan Coogler knew how to do that. He knew that those father-son relationships are complicated, and so that's one of the things where I feel he shined the most, because everything else felt kind of choppy, and I felt the writing was a little bit weird at times. But when it came to those relationships, when Black Panther, when T'Challa was talking to T'Chaka in that astral form or whatever, that was beautiful. Like those
when
moments
he turns
connected.
from a panther to T'Chaka, I was like, that's
God.
dope.
It was beautiful.
So
It was
Yeah.
beautiful. And then when Eric Killmonger was turning into the Black Panther, that had an amazing moment too. So I think Ryan Coogler really hit the mark when it comes to things like that, which is things that I feel like we can explore later on, because this is like, it's
But
like,
I'm,
I'm
like-
still trying to process it.
But I'm not mad at it. Like that's
No.
as I'm sitting in the middle of the
amazing.
movie, I'm like, I cannot wait to see this a second time, to continue to you know, to like to really study this and figure out what's,
and then
you know,
also the other movement that was amazing was when he let the ship appear in Oakland, and these little kids were like, oh my god, we've never seen stuff like this. And the one little kid was like, is this yours? Like what? Like how do we? Like I'm interested. I want to see more of this. And he's gonna build a whole community center, which is amazing.
Hector,
it's like deep themes that are here that we need to explore more.
Yeah, and Hector and I were saying before we started recording was like, for us, that little kid was Ryan Coogler first discovering Black Panther and saying, there is somebody out there like me who is powerful and wants to do good.
and how important
and that's
it is,
inspirational.
and how important it is for an American black kid to see a king of an African country that was never colonized. That is stuff that, like, again, I don't know what that will be like ever.
It's like it takes a lot of processing because
every aspect of Latino and Central American and South American cultures and everything has colonization as a part of it.
Yeah.
There's no sort of version of Black Panther for my family and heritage and
Mexican,
ancestors
because
and stuff.
our Mexican ancestry is like it's
Spain,
because of colonization.
Boom,
you know?
a bunch of you know, but like nobody has tried to. That's what's so cool and interesting and unique about Panther. Is it there isn't this is kind of a trope. That like non-white cultures. Every version has a fantasy world where, like, what if colonization never happened? It's only Black Panther. I don't know if there is any other.
Right.
And it's really interesting. I remember going back to when I was in college. I took a class. I forget what the class was, but we were discussing Tarzan and the sort of racist history of Tarzan and some of those themes and everything in it. And I introduced. Like I said, teacher, have you heard of Black Panther? And she was like, no, what is that? And I'm like, this is a Marvel comic book, and this is the idea that it presents. And she was like, oh, that's very interesting. This sort of like this Tarzan for Black people. This completely different, this guy who rises up and sort of becomes the leader of this world. But it's devoid of those kinds of influences and everything, and yet at the same time, again, because it was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and then worked on by many different writers and artists over the years, to me it does have a uniquely American perspective. It was so important for that kid at the end to be in Oakland as opposed to a kid in Wakanda who grew up in Wakanda, knows Wakanda,
and he's got one of those bracelets, and he's just like, this is a normal part of his life.
There are other scenes at the end of this movie, after this movie takes place, where T'Challa does that to other Black communities around the world, and it's just as impactful. But it was on purpose that it happened. That whole element of the story took place in Oakland on purpose. It's the end of The Last Jedi. That scene, the Broom Kid, is the moment where the movie was like, this is why Star Wars is important. And at the end of Black Panther, it's about representation. It's like, this is why Black Panther is important. This kid's gonna look up at T'Challa and be like, what kind of impact is that gonna have on this kid?
Man, I need a lot more time. I need another rewatch, but just to wrap it up, I'm going to say this movie's amazing. Besides the things that I feel like could have been done better, everybody needs to absolutely go out and watch this movie. Everybody will take away something different from this movie.
Totally.
Because of your own personal life experience. So go out, watch it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times if you have to.
In 3D.
Understand it. In 3D.
At least one time. Do me that solid.
Do me that solid.
If you're already planning on seeing it like 5 times, you'd be like, give me the fourth one, put it in 3D.
Give me one in 3D.
Yeah.
If you're going to see it 4 times, give me one in 3D.
If you're going to go see it in 270 degrees, you definitely got to go see it in 3D.
Yeah,
so that Disney can put it out on 3D Blu-ray for me, please. So
they'll put it out.
The 3D sales are good.
They'll put it on 3D
We'll
Blu-ray.
fucking see. All right, we'll see.
Just want to say last thing too is I think cinematography, music, art direction, all of the technical elements and all sort of the creative elements were top
They were
notch.
on point. I feel like there's not much you can say because when it's done right, there's not a lot to talk about. It's just amazing.
Yeah, super good, super good. All right, so we're gonna shift a little bit. That's our Black Panther review. Make sure you guys let us know in the comments below what your thoughts were on Black Panther.
One more thing, shout out to Travis Frucci and
Fruch,
who was in the credits of this movie.
Yeah,
old coworkers, really cool guys.
Bunch of old coworkers. It's always great to see your guys' names.
Yeah,
in
it's
there.
good to see all your guys' names in the credits.
Simon
sure.
Kern, my buddy Simon.
Yeah, so many people.
Great.
So all that good stuff.
All right, so we're gonna shift gears a little bit. We're gonna briefly touch on this because
what is there to say?
I feel like, well, we've known this news for a long time.
Yes and no.
This news. I thought we were talking about the next thing.
No.
Whatever.
Very, very interesting. There's a report out that sort of goes back and talks about what really happened leading up to Zack Snyder exiting Justice League. The only thing I'm going to say about this is that the article says that he was fired. It sort of gives reasonings why, primarily because the original, or I would say the first sort of rough cut of the movie was quote unquote unwatchable. That's when they brought in Joss Whedon, and then they used the unfortunate event of what happened with his daughter as a way to sort of part ways with Zack Snyder. So
to save face.
To save face and to sort of let Zack have an exit that is not, hey, we fired you. Hey, we're doing this because a tragedy happened. You know, whether or not that's true, I don't care. Don't come at me in the comments telling me what's right or what's wrong. You don't know. We don't know. We're not a news site. We're just going based off of facts that or things that we read and hear on the internet. Whether or not it's true, I don't really give a shit. I think I said it on Twitter. Somebody tweeted this link to us and asked us what our thoughts were. all I said was it's over and it's done with. Justice League has happened. It's now on digital. It's going to be on Blu-ray next month.
Zach's out.
I don't care about the production. I don't care about who made this movie, who didn't make this movie. The movie is what it is. We got some deleted scenes, both of them being with Superman. One of him going back into the chamber to get his Superman suit. He walks past a black and silver suit. Everyone's up in arms that wasn't in the movie. If he never intended on wearing the suit anyways, who cares? The second scene is of him going to meet Alfred, which we saw at the trailer, the end of the trailer.
Yeah, where he says,
let's hope you're not too late.
He told me you'd be here.
Exactly, exactly. And to me, again, it's like 2-3 minutes of footage, 2.5 minutes of footage that wouldn't have changed anything about the movie. The movie still would have been the movie. So I get that there's a lot of fans out there who look at that footage and they go, this would have been really cool. But I was telling Hector before we started recording is like, we resurrect Superman. He goes to the farm. He goes to the ship. He goes to Alfred, and then he goes to Russia.
Right.
So much happening. Just get to the point.
There's no point in having it. And it's another. It's a thing of coulda, woulda, shoulda. Like sure. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. You can argue that all day.
Exactly.
Proof's in the pudding, dude. The movie is the movie, and you're not going to change it no matter how much your opinion.
Either you like it or you
so,
don't.
Yeah, either you like it or you don't. So.
I still am of the belief that like a movie, the final product should be judged whatever was theatrically released.
Yeah, I agree.
And part of movie making is that it is collaborative.
Exactly.
So it is not just one person. It is not just. It's not. Producers
it's not the Zack Snyder show.
Producers are part of that element too, man. And if you watch a movie and you love it, it's because the director was great, the writer was great, the producers also did their fucking jobs, man. The cast pulled it in, like every element
the
of that
artists,
production.
The stunt people,
you
the
like.
costumes,
If
everybody.
you dislike a movie, it is not because one person was trying to do a great thing and everybody else then you should judge that movie for what this final product is. That includes producers, the studio, the writing, the acting, the directing, the costumes, the visual effects, all of it. If you like or dislike a movie, you got to give credit to the whole team. It cannot just be the one. I don't like the idea of a director's cut being released later because I'm like, no, you guys, all of the people, good or bad, that put this movie together, should that's what you put, And if,
also, you can't erase my brain. Like I saw what I saw, you know, like I know what is there, and the fact that maybe there was some disagreements at the studio, and all of a sudden you feel like you have to put your version out, already kind of puts another bad taste in my mouth.
I agree.
You know,
I agree.
So it's
like,
not a good situation.
Even with stuff like the Richard Donner cut for Superman 2, which I think is better to watch. It's better than the than what's the other director's name? Richard Lester cut. That was still what Warner Brothers put out in 1980 or 1982 or whatever it was, 81 that came out, and like Augustine said, like whatever comes out later is just going to put a bad taste in your mouth. And I know that Blade Runner, the final cut, is probably better. You know, that doesn't have that narration or whatever than whatever was the theatrical. But like for better or worse, whoever's idea it was to put that out in 1982, they should have to deal with those consequences.
Right, exactly.
Producers included. If producers make a bad call on then they shouldn't be producers anymore. Then you should be like, no, don't work on the creative. Don't do that, because look at the movie that we ended up with, and unfortunately, part of these processes, and I'm not saying that this is what the case is in Justice League, not at all. I don't think this is the case actually, but a lot of the times in these studio machines, like certain people will want to. You know, it's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And part of being a good producer and part of being a good sort of team player is to kind of delegate and to know when to allow a storyteller to tell the story, and then when to come in and be like, no, man, for time and for pacing and for like we got to do that. We have to finish. It's art and commerce. It's both. So I know it sounds like I'm saying I'm sounding like I'm contradicting myself, but what I'm trying to say is that everybody involved should be to praise or to blame for whatever the thing is.
And they all share in the responsibility of the final product.
The movie's done, and it's just not positive to continually being like, release the Snyder cut. I'm like, that's not helping anybody.
No,
especially because from everything that, like, there are some people that are saying not all the footage doesn't exist, and some people are saying some of it does. We're never going to know.
No.
It doesn't look like Warner Brothers has any intention of putting out a Snyder cut. If they do in some crazy future, that's great. But again, that's not going to change the movie that we
Came out
were
in
given.
November. Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like
Yeah,
the
not
ultimate
at
cut
all.
with BBS and the regular and theatrical cut. Does the ultimate cut fix some things of the theatrical? Yes, it adds on a little bit of
But
stuff.
did it go back in time and was released
No.
instead?
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
So
No.
it's like,
No.
I feel like in some people's heads, it did.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Like,
that's
it
fine
went back in
because
time and
when there's
deleted everything.
options like that, some people
Yeah.
can choose that to be like, well, my preferred version
Of
is
course.
Daredevil, the director's cut
Yeah,
with
yeah.
Coolio.
I
It's
think-
like, that's cool.
that's fine.
Enjoy that, but like that wasn't what was released in 2003 in theaters. You know, like it didn't erase the
He's
other
definitely in
version.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing is like you guys can argue about it all you want. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, it's not going to matter. We're moving on.
We're done skis
We're
with
done.
that. We're done. We're moving on.
Let's
Yeah.
look.
It's
Let's
just
look
negative,
forward. Let's
man.
look forward to Aquaman. Let's look forward
Thank
to
you.
the movies that they're going to be doing from here
Shazam.
on out. Whether or not Zack Snyder comes back or doesn't, we're not going to know. As far as we know, no, he's not coming back. He'll have a producer credit on some movies. That'll kind of be it. So it's just, I'm just so over people tweeting me this stuff and asking me my opinion. I don't care. I'm ready for the next movie.
All right. Well, then let's move on to
Let's
the next
move
topic.
on.
Okay.
So this was crazy. I did not know this. I did not know this little piece of history. I guess there's a book coming out that talks about sort of the history of Marvel and Sony, or just Marvel in general, and sort of film franchises. But I did not know that Sony almost owned all the rights to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Ooh,
They
that's
almost had
interesting.
rights
I
to
didn't know this
Iron Man,
either.
to Captain America, to Black Panther, other characters. And it was funny because I guess one of the executives who was there at the time said, no one gives a shit about these other Marvel characters. Go back and give us a deal just for Spider-Man.
Wow.
So let me be the first to say,
Thank you very much,
Yep.
unnamed producer.
I'm glad it didn't happen, you fucking moron. And a big
You
old
ding dong.
fuck you, buddy. That is insulting. That is straight up insulting. You know what I mean?
Hector, it's your favorite character, Spider-Man.
I love
That
Spider-Man.
got the green light.
I love
Like,
Spider-Man,
it's-
but
he kind
even
of kicked off the whole universe as we
I
know
would
it.
not be surprised if the producers, or again, even the director Sam Raimi, the writers of that first Spider-Man film,
Yeah.
were looking at what came before in terms of like, oh, the Batman movies each had a different actor,
Yeah.
a guest
Yeah.
actor playing the villain, and then at the end of each movie, the villain died.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be surprised if they looked at what came before and were like, let's kill Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Like he
That's
dies
why
in
they
the
killed him.
comics, as opposed to having that forethought to know. I bet you Kevin Feige, when he was like an associate producer on those films, I bet you he was the guy going, why don't we keep him alive so that we can build towards a Sinister Six?
Yeah.
And somebody went, no, that's not how you make a fucking movie.
Yeah.
This shit happens
What do
all
you
the
know, young
time.
kid?
The scape
This
of
happens
movies
all the
was
time.
different back then.
Yes.
Too, though,
So
know?
I wouldn't be surprised. It doesn't surprise me that Sony, you guys have shit the bed a lot of times. It's a bummer. It's a bummer because I want your movies to be awesome. And yet
Exactly.
we get things where it feels as if you don't care as much about. Look, we just talked.
Venom.
We just talked about Black Panther.
Sorry.
You all right
Black-
there?
Venom.
Sound a little symbiotic. I mean, sick.
I'm
Black
sick.
Panther.
I'm sick,
God,
sorry.
man, Black Panther was all of the Marvel movies up to this point. Even the weird ones like Thor Ragnarok that aren't super Thor-y, they still are given so much love and care.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind that there are people that work on, and I don't want to sound like an annoying like fanboy, but it blows my mind that there are executives at these movie studios that think that like the properties that they have are shit. Then it's like, then what are you doing if you can't get into this thing and research it and believe it and understand why it is a successful thing in the first place and understand why anybody would even bring this to your table to be like, let's adapt this, because
Hector, you saw that documentary of the toys that made us, right?
Mhm.
Like, have you seen it, Adam? It's a good
fascinating.
one.
It's great.
But look at the He-Man. Why the He-Man movie was made?
Mhm.
Literally, the only reason that movie was made was because of the toys, and they didn't give a fuck about what happened.
Well,
in
that's
the
why
movie.
Batman and Robin was made.
Right.
Sure.
So I mean, that's the old mentality that
Yeah.
that movie
It's all about
used to
products.
have.
And I
you know?
think that audiences are getting more savvy with this shit because of how familiar everybody is and how like knowledgeable we are about the filmmaking process while they're doing it. Like
Right,
we're learning
right.
all the tidbits and stuff. And so like when we hear a director's name like Michael Bay for Lobo, everyone's gonna be like, "Really, dude? Really?" Do you know what I mean? As opposed to
God,
like
yeah.
when we
That
hear
still
like
pisses me off.
inspired choices for directors or inspired choices for
Right,
casting, or it just there you can just tell sometimes in the production of a
Yeah.
film. And if they're still like wild, like, oh, Taika Waititi for Thor 3, like
Right.
what the hell is that going to
Yeah.
be? The trailer will come out and people will then,
It's like, this is something different, a new version. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
somebody
So-
tweeted at us. Did you guys see that tweet where like Marvel's catching all this new revolutionary talent, and DC's like, Lobo movie, let's get Michael Bay.
It's just a
bummer, man.
Oh god,
it's a bummer. But
here?
DC's got
Cougs.
Warner Brothers have got, who do they got directing Shazam?
David F. Sandberg.
Interesting. I'm interested in that.
Okay,
you know what I mean? I'm not like retching at
You're
it.
not
I'm
like blown away either,
yeah,
but it's
sure.
interesting.
But it's
he's still an up and coming director.
look, I wasn't blown away when they announced James Gunn, who directed Slither,
That's true.
to do
That's
Guardians of the Galaxy, and then look at the ultimate proof of this is Guardians of the Galaxy. They
Yeah.
took a talking raccoon and a
Yeah.
talking tree that said one word
Mhm.
and made you give a shit about them. So there's no excuse for
I
any
am
of these.
Groot.
Like basically every comic book character is better than Guardians of the Galaxy. Realistically. So
I
like
mean,
you have no
I
excuse for not
honestly-
making as good a movie.
The only reason I knew about Guardians of the Galaxy because I heard that movie was being made, so I went and did my homework.
Yeah.
Before that, I didn't know who Star-Lord was.
Yeah.
Star-Lord.
Star-Lord.
But to
Pisses
go
me
back
off.
to kind of go back to the topic, Adam and Hector, what do you feel like say Sony did by the universe? What would it have looked?
They would have
Hector and I-
they burned it into the ground. And then eventually
Black
the same
Panther would have been played by a white guy.
the same thing that happened. No shit. No kidding, dude. Real talk. Real
He
talk.
would have been played by fucking, let's see,
Yeah.
2002. He would have been played by like Hayden Christensen.
Brad Pitt or
Like
something.
Some really tan white guy.
Yeah. This summer, the king of
Played by
Wakanda
Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic
arrives. Yep. I'm a dude disguised. No, you know what they would have said? They would have. It's like The Last Samurai. The movie would have been about a white guy raised in Wakanda who grows up
It would
to
have
be
been
king.
about what's his name?
Like the only
Martin
white-
Freeman's character.
Yeah, exactly. Everett K. Ross,
Ross.
played by Brad Pitt, in
Exploring this mysterious nation in the jungle.
The Last King of Wakanda. And he's like, I don't know if I can be king. All these black women are like, but you have to
But
save
you have
us.
to be king.
Oh,
Look, we're
Christ.
making fun of you studios because this is the kind of shit that you've pulled historically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it just reminds me of the commentary. It's true. Reminds me of the commentary for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Beautiful shot of New York. One of the people on the commentary track is like, oh, hey, producer number one, do you want to tell everybody why we shot in New York? First answer, yeah, the tax breaks. And right then I want to be like, go
No, you
fuck
dumb
yourself,
fuck.
dude. At least do the Kevin Feige thing and know how to do PR.
Yeah.
You shot in New York because Spider-Man is New York.
Yep.
Go fuck yourself. That made me so mad that that's like the Sony attitude.
Yeah.
Sony did they do the Emoji movie?
I believe so.
I don't care.
I think it lost so much
I
money for
really
them.
don't care
on.
who did that
Come
movie.
on.
Yeah. So
I should
Come
care
on.
because I should never watch anything they
well,
make
the
ever
one
again,
thing that
but-
you and I like to do is we like to do this like role reversal,
hypothetical.
the
Yeah.
hypotheticals, and we always talk about like what if instead of in 2008, instead of getting Iron Man, we got Batman Begins, you know, that sort of thing. But I agree. I think the landscape would have been very different. For sure, this would not have been an interconnected universe, for sure. The only thing that I think maybe could have happened is if they got the Punisher, then maybe in Spider-Man 2, when you actually see Frank Castle, it would have been Frank Castle, but it would have been only a nod.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of it.
I think it's fascinating that none of the studios had owned the rights to various characters. Because remember, Fox had X-Men and Fantastic Four since the beginning.
Yeah.
Hulk was Universal along with Namor the Submariner.
Which I
So-
think has gone back to
Oh, and Fox also had
Marvel.
Daredevil back then.
Yeah,
possibly.
yeah, they did.
Possibly.
Elektra
But,
and
like,
all those characters.
New
yeah.
Line had like Man Thing and
Blade.
Punisher and Blade.
Yeah.
The point is
Sony had
that
Ghost Rider, Spider-Man.
Yes.
Yeah.
the point is that it wasn't until 2008. It wasn't until Marvel Studios. It wasn't until various successes and failures with these characters, and Marvel was left with C-string characters that like Iron Man with Tom Cruise may have happened,
Yeah.
but when that fell through, it was like, what do we have left? We have the B and C list characters that could form the
There's
Avengers.
Dingus Iron Man.
It had to take a Kevin Feige to go, this is why people love these comics,
Yeah.
because the characters cross over and they
Yeah.
know each other.
Yeah.
So let's build towards that.
Yeah.
A movie studio would have never done that and taken that risk. So like
Right.
maybe Sony would have been like, next summer, Sony's Thor. And it
Yeah.
would have been like a comedy. They just would have
Yeah.
crashed everything into the ground.
No, I agree. We would not be
Brad
looking
Pitt
at.
would have definitely been playing Thor at that
We would
point.
not be looking at an Infinity War right now.
No
Definitely.
way.
We would be looking at like Iron Man 2 right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
again, it would have crashed. Marvel Studios would have started it up, but just later. And like, in 2018, it would have been
Yeah.
like The Incredible Hulk.
Totally.
Or like
totally.
Captain America, the first event. Like that's what would have happened.
Yeah. I
Thank
agree.
God it happened the way it happened, because
Yeah.
otherwise we would have been in the pooter. New X-Men
Adam,
movie.
you're on fire tonight.
New
my
X-Men
friend.
movie apparently coming from
Talking about the pooter.
talking about it coming from Tim Miller and
Deadpool?
Brian Michael Bendis.
Tim Miller is a Deadpool director. Deadpool
Former Deadpool director Tim Miller, who is supposed to be directing the new Terminator franchise for James Cameron,
I'd be down for
is
that.
apparently developing 143, a new Kitty Pryde movie based on Uncanny X-Men number 143, where Kitty Pryde apparently fought a demon in the X-Mansion. Now, I don't know if that's what the movie's going to be or if they're just using that as a co-title. I don't know if that was the introduction to Kitty Pryde in the comic books.
It was one of her, I think, if not her introduction, one of the
first.
earliest appearances, because
Yeah.
she was
Yeah,
known
this
as
is-
Kitty Pryde, or maybe even Sprite was her like superhero codename that she chose for herself, and eventually she dropped it and just
Yeah.
became
Just became
Shadowcat, and then just
Shadowcat.
dropped that and was like, I'm just Kitty Pryde. Like,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
call
yeah.
me Kitty Pryde.
She's
I don't
just
have a
Kitty.
secret
Yeah.
identity.
Yeah.
And she was like 13 in that appearance. She was
Okay.
super young because she's always been a younger character. This is a mistake.
It's an absolute mistake. It's so dumb to be breaking up the X-Men this way.
Yeah.
Kitty Pryde is an integral part of the X-Men.
I love Kitty Pryde.
She's absolutely
Yes.
important
Yes.
because she's been there. People don't know that she's been there from the beginning. I had to listen to the podcast. What's it called? Explaining the X-Men
Yeah.
to actually because I thought I knew a lot about the X-Men. I did not know a lot about the X-Men because there's a lot of stuff that happened that like X-Force and the New Mutants and all and how it's all interconnected. And Kitty Pryde is an integral part. And even now in the comic runs, she's the
Oh,
leader
yeah.
of the X-Men.
Yes,
Like,
she's the headmistress.
She's important.
She's the new Charles Xavier.
Why are we focusing on this right now?
I don't know.
Like, you're
Yeah,
making
that's
an
the
X
question.
movie
Yeah.
Yeah,
where she's the leader of a team.
not bad so far.
No, not bad. No, not
But
bad at all.
why
But
at
where's
this
the
time?
Team?
Where's the
X-Men?
timeline?
What's the timeline?
You know,
Why should
is
I care
is
about
143 going to be a movie that is going to introduce us to Kitty Pryde, kind of like how it does in the comic books, which apparently was her first solo adventure, one of her first solo adventures. But is it going to be that thing where we're going to introduce the character and then we're going to use this movie to sort of tie it into
Prequel?
the X-Men movies that are currently happening with Ty Sheridan and Sophie Turner?
the
Is she
other
going to end up
thing-
being the new leader?
The
Like,
other
how
thing
does
that,
work?
people online have been saying about this is that like it just feels a little bit like, oh, you guys don't have your finger on the pulse because people loved Logan, and if you're gonna do a young girl female centric movie, you give it to Laura, you give it to
the
X-23
new Wolverine.
because she
Which
earned
I
it,
think James Mangold is still developing.
which would be cool. So I think that coupled with what you said, Augustine, like why are we focusing on this at this time? Is this an unintended effect of the Logan story, which was like we're just going to do a one-off movie that basically says whatever to the rest of the continuity, and it was such a good movie that now they're looking at this and they're going, yeah, let's do the same thing, except instead of an old man Logan, we'll do a young woman Kitty Pryde as like a prequel, like her origin story. But that's not always going to work. The X-Men is a team.
This is a tone-deaf decision.
We're in
Like-
a different point in superhero
Yeah.
movies right now.
Yeah.
Does Tim
We're
Miller
not
and
there.
Brian Michael Bendis being on board and developing this give you guys any confidence? Or
I love Brian Michael Bendis, and I
Yeah.
think he writes Kitty Pryde very well, and he's a phenomenal writer. And I'm surprised that it took this long for him to be like this attached to a movie.
Yeah.
Right,
He's come and done
right.
touch-ups and different things on movies, and he's been part of the Marvel Creative Trust when they were asking him about, what do you think of Iron Man's cave, like back in 2007 or whatever, like can you help us with some jokes or whatever. But like even that, I just it's a thing where the X-Men world is in this weird state of flux that it's not, it doesn't have that momentum that
I
Marvel
also don't know
Studios
where
has.
it's going.
No,
It does not have that
It-
momentum.
It's just odd. It's
When-
just I feel like there's
Yeah.
no connection to this, and they don't really know how to build hype for these movies because I feel like it's just coming out of left field. You know?
When Marvel announces its Phase 4 or whatever after Avengers Infinity War Part 2,
Yeah.
everything is going to make sense, and every announcement we're going to be stoked about.
Right. Right.
I wish that was the case for like X-Men movies at this point, but again, it does not have that momentum that the rest of the franchise is just like either building on it or like in such a good place, or that they have this person that like kind of knows what would be great. And when something like this comes out, people are going, look, man, especially after Black Panther, especially after rumors that like Angela Bassett almost played her back in the 90s. Where is the effing Storm movie? Storm is a character that deserves her own movie. It's all about hashtag Black Girl Magic right
Yeah.
now. This is what people are asking for. This is what they're demanding.
Yep.
And the X-Men have an incredibly diverse cast of great characters. Not that Kitty Pryde isn't great. She's phenomenal, but it's this thing of like, if they came out and announced a Storm movie, people would be like, dope,
They would
this
lose
is
their
great.
shit. Yeah.
Cool. What is this? Is it going to be Halle Berry? What is this?
Yeah.
What's it going to be? As opposed to, guys, what about this? And everyone's like, we didn't ask
What
for
about
it.
an integral X-Men that nobody's ever heard of before? Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have the greatest name either. Like
Yeah.
her name's not
Yeah.
exciting. It's just like
Shadowcat.
Yeah.
Shadowcat.
No, Kitty Pryde. Kitty
Yeah,
Pryde.
it's Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
it's just it's a left field decision, and just the X-Men franchise after Days of Future Past was kind of
a pooper scooper.
Oh man.
Well, and plus I think, you know, we still have like a year and a half before we know exactly what's going to happen with this merger with Disney. And this movie could be announced, and then in 6 months we find out, oh, never mind, they're not doing it. Like, look at Gambit. Gambit
like
again hit another snag. Again.
Yeah.
Just kill it.
We got Deadpool. We got
With fire.
X-Men Dark Phoenix coming out this year, and New Mutants
in
next
February.
year.
I'm gonna keep saying this. We've been on YouTube for almost 4 years now. We've been talking about Gambit since almost the beginning.
Go ahead and say it, man.
Guys, next week is our 1 year anniversary of being here at Hyper RPG.
Oh, really?
Is it?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Oh, that's nice.
I think it's next week or the week after.
That's
Oh,
nice.
that's
week
very
after.
nice.
I
We
was
should
gonna
have a
say
little
it,
party.
man. Will Gambit happen?
No, Gambit's
Okay.
not gonna happen.
All
Nobody
right.
wants Gambit to
That's a
happen.
bummer.
Burn it to the fucking
Sorry,
ground.
guys. Sorry, Channing. Sorry,
Sorry,
man.
bud.
It's not gonna happen.
Sorry,
buddy.
man.
Sorry.
We should close this out on a happy ending.
Yeah.
We should watch the trailer for The Incredibles 2.
Because I haven't seen it yet.
Neither has Zach.
I haven't seen either.
I
This
saw
fills
it.
me with so much joy.
What I did see was I love Michael Giacchino so much, and I love now, especially that he's going on social media. He's posting little clips. He posts a little bit of a snippet from Culver City where they're doing the score at the Sony sound stages, and it's the title card, and it's just like. It's just the opening.
got that energy.
Dun, 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 dun,
It might still be Michael Giacchino's best score still.
Oh, I
It's
love
The
it so
Incredibles.
much.
So
Between that and
amazing.
Star Trek, it's some good stuff. But let's check out this trailer. Incredibles 2 Olympic sneak peek.
Behold the Underminer!
They start up with the Underminer.
Watch after Jack Jack. I thought we were gonna go.
Heard your mother, trampolining. We meet again.
Uh-oh.
Superheroes are illegal.
We want to fight bad guys. It defines who I am.
We're not saying you have... What?
Someone on TV said it.
I was approached by this tycoon. Wants to talk about hero stuff.
Help me bring supers back into the sunlight. We need Elastigirl.
Bye, sweetie.
I'll watch
Oh,
the kids,
shit.
no problem.
Bye, Bob.
That's not the way you're supposed to do it, Dad. They want us to do it this
I don't
way.
know that way. Why would they change math? Math is math. Math is math. All over Dusseldorf. Doozles are dozing. Eyelids so heavy, they're drooping.
That's me. Yep. That's me at the computer working.
Close it!
I couldn't have done this if you hadn't taken over so well.
I've got to succeed so she can succeed. So we can succeed.
I get it, Bob. What the? That is freaky.
But I can't keep giving him cookies. No biting a daddy.
Done properly, parenting is a heroic act. Done properly.
Nice.
Goodness.
Nice.
Okay.
June 15th.
This is gonna
We're
be
going from a birthday.
That's your birthday?
June 14th.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thanks.
Happy early birthday.
Thanks.
This movie is a complete departure from the last one.
It is and it isn't. It's like the last one is like, are mom and dad going to get divorced?
Yeah.
And then they come together. at
Family
the end.
problems.
And this one is mom is now the independent career
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah.
Dad's got to be
Which,
mom.
if the
Good
world
luck.
is still set in this sort of pseudo '60s world,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I think it takes place actually right after the
Well,
first
yeah,
one.
Sure, but still, the first one-
Underminer literally,
Yeah.
The first one was still this kind of '60s-ish because like 20 years prior was
Some,
like
so
40s
somebody
kind
worked
of.
out the math,
Yeah.
and they said that the 15-year gap from the last interview that Elastigirl gave at the very beginning to 15 years
I'm
later
playing with
would
the
have been
big dogs.
1970.
Okay.
Exactly 1970 when
If it
you
was-
open up and Bob Parr's inside that office.
Interesting.
If it went from 55 to 70.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did they say that it took place in
No,
1955?
but they said doing the math. Yeah, they said that those interviews took place in 55,
Oh.
and so
Okay.
the time span was 15 years,
And even in
and it's
this
happened in the
this
70s.
Incredibles world 1970 in this Pixar universe, it's still going to be different than the real world 1970.
Oh
obviously,
yeah,
all
absolutely.
that shit. But
'Cause
like,
it's
yeah,
still like kind of atomic age, 60s, 50s type.
I love The Incredibles so much.
it's
I
so
cannot
good.
wait to see
It's
this movie.
so
It's
some
gonna
great
be so
animation. Some great animation.
good. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's going to be cool too because this movie is supposed to debut a bunch of new heroes. So that's going to be interesting to see,
Ooh,
like what are some of the
interesting.
new heroes that we're going to see. I know some of the new actors have been revealed. I don't know if necessarily they've revealed whether or not they're heroes and who they are. I kind of don't want to know. I kind of just want to go into the movie
Yeah.
and just experience it because that's what it
Yeah,
was. That's what the
yeah.
first Incredibles was for me.
Yeah.
I watched the trailer. I saw the movie. I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I've been waiting for this since 2004. So let's
Yeah.
go. I'm excited.
Let's go for your birthday.
Oh, yeah.
do it. I'll
Yeah.
wear like birthday party hats.
Oh, it's gonna happen. I don't care if we're going to the Disney lot or El Capitan.
Yeah.
We're gonna wear party hats no matter
El
what.
Cap would be fun.
That would be awesome.
To bust
If
out
they do
my
a double
head.
feature, I might actually go do the double
Yeah,
feature.
actually, I would do a double feature
Now,
for that one.
Guys, I hate to harp on this again.
What do you-
Got to talk about the 3D for a second. Before they put out Toy Story 3 in 2010, the year before in 2009, they re-released 1 and 2 in 3D, which they were not in 3D when they originally put them out
Yeah.
in 95
Converted?
and 1999.
95
Yeah, but
they must
Pixar
have.
had their own. They
Oh,
did,
okay.
They did
I
it
was like, why
themselves.
didn't we work on those?
Because they had the files,
had
man.
their own.
DreamWorks was like, we lost all of
They
Shrek.
just re-rendered it.
Yeah,
That's why we worked on
with the
it.
second
Oh,
eye.
okay,
They know what they're
okay,
doing.
yeah.
But I haven't heard anything about putting Incredibles back in,
Yeah.
and like I would love because that was not released in 3D, and that would be an incredible
I know,
movie
I know.
in 3D.
Well, I see
like
what you did there.
I want it so
watching
bad.
Dash
Yeah.
like run in 3D
Yeah.
would be amazing.
Just the
Yeah.
whole thing. I hope that at some point they put that out so that
It would be
can get
great.
my
I
hands
don't
on
know.
it.
I doubt it'll happen before this movie comes out,
No.
only because we know how much what the process is. And I
Yep.
think Brad Bird is so knee deep in finishing this movie. Yeah, I think it'll probably. I think there's potential once this movie comes out on home video on Blu-ray. There's potential that maybe following suit
Okay.
would be Incredibles in 3D. Only if people want it though, Hector. Don't get too excited.
And they don't.
Yeah.
So
Poor
I'm
Hector.
Poor Hector.
and not only
My
do they
heart
not
breaks
want
for
it,
you,
but like,
Hector.
but Disney, I'm sure, is part of the group in Hollywood, the sort of Directors Guild / consumer people, whatever, that have been like, let's put everything behind 4K. That's going to be the next thing. 3D
Yeah.
TVs aren't selling anymore. Now they're hard to get. If mine
Right.
breaks,
Nobody
I
makes
don't-
them anymore.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
crazy though. I mean, it took them long to jump on the 4K thing. I mean,
Yeah, it took him.
it's a little frustrating to me because I like getting the 4K and the 3D, and the fact that I now
they
only
don't
have the
do
4K
that
option.
Guys,
I'm like,
I
where's the
just
3D?
got a Blu-ray player like a year ago, so I'm way behind the times.
Yeah, you are.
My
No,
God.
you got
Who
you
are
got
you?
your digital. You're on a whole
Yeah, I
nother.
know, it's true.
I'm the one with the physical copy over here.
I know.
But I'm like Blade Runner 2049. I got to go to Best Buy to get the 3D version. Okay, but I got it, guys.
Which we can have an offline conversation about that,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah,
a whole
yeah.
weird thing that
Yeah.
they didn't release in 3D in theaters here. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you thought about all the topics that we covered. How do you feel about the new X-Men movie? How do you feel about potentially what happened with Justice League? Ooh, touchy subject.
Or subject.
Touchy
Just don't
subject.
tweet us about
Just
that
don't tweet
one.
us.
Just
Don't at
tweet
me.
us
Don't
about
at
that
me.
one.
I don't want to know. I don't give a fuck about the
Yeah.
problems of that movie anymore. Hector, where can everybody find you?
You find me on the internet at Hector is Funny. Be sure to check out new episodes of the 500 Greatest Films podcast. Augustine, you're next, but we're
know.
gonna have to talk about Amores Perros
Yep.
very soon in
And
a
the
few
Incredibles.
weeks.
Just kidding. I'm not doing the Incredibles.
Maybe that'll be in a couple years.
Yeah,
Couple
I'll
years
wait
from
5
now.
years for that one.
Oh man.
Augustine, where can people
You can find
you?
me at L_Santo Taco trying to digest all of Black Panther.
Yeah.
So let's have a conversation.
Let's go see it again. Let's
I'm all
just
about
go see
that.
it.
Let's just go see
Let's
it
just go
again.
see it
Right now.
2, 3, 4 more times.
Right
You can just find me at Adam Hlavik. And guys, make sure you go down to the description. Check out Naeem's amazing drawing tribute to
Yeah,
Black
definitely,
Panther.
definitely.
It's incredible. And we'll catch you in the next episode.